there's a gown on top of the. So I went back in again. I'm 16. I've obviously embarrassed myself and exposed myself. I went back in behind the screen, put this gown on, but I've never put a hospital gown on before. So you know how they're meant to go around the back like that. I put it on like the wrong way, so the bit was still open down the front. And I'm standing there again, and I can see all my bits. And she said, "Are you ready?" And I thought, Jesus Christ, deep breath. And I walked out again, and she went, no, it's back to front. It's back. And so I exposed myself twice when I was 16. And that's it's basically a journey through the 1980s when football was very different. I mean, and then into the 90s through the entertainers stuff, and then through Bobby Robson's time as a manager. So I think there's a lot in there and I tried to put a lot of things in there that actually would be unique to me that maybe other people would never have heard before. There's a couple of stories you'll know, but there should be lots of things in there that actually people will never have heard of. And why would they? Because they're very intimate things about things that happened specifically with me.
There's some great stories in here, and what I love about it is, I mean, thank you to the publisher for sending me an advanced copy of this as well. The 80s stuff is fantastic, and obviously that was when I started supporting Newcastle. 83, 84 was my first season, so to hear about the legend that was Arthur Cox, and some of his stories was great. And I love that chapter about wisdom. Arthur's wisdom. And there was a little story which I hope you don't mind sharing, which is where you and Neil MacDonald, who was affectionately nicknamed Spotty back in the day,
that's right,
were looking over at some sunbathers, and you didn't realise Arthur was coming up behind you.
Yeah, well, it was that followed on from a previous. It was a trip to Hamburg because Kevin Keegan was playing for us, and we went back to Hamburg, and I think we were both 17, maybe just, but 17. And actually, the story was, the start of it was I was sub because I was always sub. Neil started the game. The game started, and honestly, the game started. It must have been a minute into the game, and Arthur said, "Get him off." And I thought, "Oh, he must be injured." And he took Neil off, and he put me on. So I ran on the pitch, ran across to the left wing, ran about for about 30 seconds. The ball went out of play, but the sign came up to take me off, so he took me off as well. So I went into the change room, and Neil was in the shower. And he said, "Has your hamstring gone again?" I said, "No, he just took me off." And Arthur burst through the door, and he said, he came off the touchline into the change room. The two young kids, he said, "Too many bright lights and fancy hotels for you two. That's the problem with you two. So you need to just keep your feet in the ground." And he'd set it up to do this before we even started. So that night, we're both still a bit shell shocked by that. We had our dinner in this big penthouse hotel thing. We're on the top floor, and me and Neil, and I've genuinely innocently, were looking over out the top of the thing down to the sunbathers, and there was some topless sunbathers. And we were like two kids just looking over, and his head was here and mine was here. And as we were looking over, Arthur's head just came in between both of us and just looked over in between us at what we're looking at. And he just took a step back, got our heads, and just cracked our heads together. And he just said, "There's nothing down there for you boys." He said, "Nothing down there." He said, "I've seen it all. I've been jumping off wardrobes. I've done a lot." He said, "I'd sooner see a good cross and a good header any day than that sex nonsense." And away he went.